Squared Circle Radio is on the air. Welcome to another episode. We are so happy that you have decided to join us for this WWE Backlash preview and so much more. That is the Young Buck, Andy York. My name is Chris Belcher. Again, we appreciate you hanging out with us, whether you're watching us on YouTube, whether you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate it very much. Andy, got another pay-per-view coming this weekend. Lots and lots to talk about. Only 5 matches on the show, but tons of stuff within it, man.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with the draft coming up, or the draft happening as we're recording this right now. Backlash coming up this weekend. A lot of just craziness all around pro wrestling this week as well. So it's going to be another busy week to talk about, but it's going to be a lot of fun. It
is. And we appreciate you guys joining us. If this is your first time, like the video, subscribe wherever you find your podcast and on YouTube. We would appreciate it very much. All right, Andy, let's get into it. WWE Backlash this weekend, the first PLE in which Cody Rhodes is the undisputed WWE champion. It feels good saying that, but he will take on a formidable opponent, a former WWE champion, AJ Styles. They will go head-to-head in the main event. Andy, lots of people, man, just, I don't know. We talked about this build last week and how we wanted it to get personal, and then SmackDown happened in the contract signing, and we know normally how contract signings begin and end, and this one did not, man. What are your thoughts on how this is going?
Yeah, it's really weird. I feel like the contract signing didn't really do anything for this match. I just kind of feel like it was there to make it official, but nothing crazy really happened. I'm interested to see what happens this Friday, to see if anything else kind of takes place or happens to set up something heading into actual Backlash itself. But yeah, I was a little disappointed with the segment itself. I was expecting a little bit more from it, and really nothing kind of came out of it.
Here's what I think. I think we're going to play nice. Even this Friday, coming up Backlash in France, I think we're going to play nice. I think Cody's going to beat AJ, and then AJ's going to snap, because I think we'll get AJ after that. Hey, I tried to be a nice guy. I tried to be respectful, and it's just not working for me. And boom, and there's where he hits Cody where it hurts, and there's where he takes his cheap shots. Because if I'm not mistaken, Andy, Backlash is this coming Saturday, May the 4th, and then I think Memorial Day weekend is Saudi show, King and Queen of the Ring tournament, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's like 3 weeks away. So they could easily run this thing back at the Saudi show without much of a build. And who doesn't want to see Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles more than once, right?
Right. Yeah, I fully expect this one to not be a one-off. I think this, kind of like you said, they're not really doing much right now. Just they're kind of getting to Backlash, and then after Backlash, probably turn AJ fully heel, and going after Cody Rhodes, and then they'll tell their story for the next couple of weeks heading into that Saudi show, which is turning out to look like a pretty decent card with King and Queen of the Ring, and this possibly as a championship match, and some other ones as well. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how things kind of play out post Backlash this weekend.
Yeah, Backlash typically is the pay-per-view that feeds out of WrestleMania. That's what it was originally set up and designed to be, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit when we play Backlash Trivia. But before we get there, again, got lots to preview here. So we're not really seeing a lot of WrestleMania fallout into Backlash. We're seeing the women's tag team titles on the line that came from a Mania match. We'll get to that in just a minute. But, man, I hate to already bring this up, and I know we don't want to talk about it on this podcast. I'm going to bring it up anyway. Lots of people online are already sick of Cody's title reign. He cuts the same promos every week. It's not Roman. The ratings are down. Blah, 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 blah. We're not getting as many views on YouTube. Blah, 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 blah. And here we are with we know that Cody and AJ can put all of that to bed once the bell rings. But, man, it just seems like, again, I think we're headed a good direction post-Backlash, but getting to Backlash, man, WWE is just feeding right into those internet wrestling community rumors and criticisms and all that. Like, I'm not asking you to criticize Cody's championship reign already because it's totally unfair, but what do you think is their mindset of just kind of slow burning it at this point?
Yeah, I think they honestly were just trying to get to Backlash. Like, they're trying to get through this draft. They're trying to get to Backlash. Post-Backlash, I think, is where we're really going to sink a lot into Cody's promos and him as champion and everything like that. And I hate to break it to everybody else, but even if Roman won at WrestleMania, he wasn't sticking around for post-WrestleMania.
Right.
The ratings were going down no matter what. YouTube videos were going down. That's just what happens after WrestleMania. Is the peak happened at WrestleMania,
Yep.
And then viewership and ratings go down for a little bit. So that doesn't bother me. Honestly, my thing is crowd, like live audience. Mm-hmm. What's their reception to Cody?
Yes.
And he is still getting the biggest pops of the night. So yes. I have no concerns. I have no problem. I'm not concerned at all. He's the company guy. Let him go out there, cut these company promos for 3 weeks until we get his opponent for Backlash, head into Backlash, and then we can really start to flesh out this character a lot more as champion.
Yep.
Because we're just getting started and people are fickle, and I do not take what the internet wrestling community says as gospel. It's what I hear from the live crowds. And if the live crowds start telling me that they're bored of Cody, then that's a completely different topic that we can cover if we ever get to that point. But I think we're several months from that actually happening, if happening at all, because I don't really see that happening.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you fear who they'll put up against Cody. You fear that he'll get the Seth Rollins treatment. It seems like every time he's world champion, as we talk about all the time, you put him up against people that people like, and it's going to split the crowd. And we don't think that's going to happen with Cody just because of how popular that he is. And then again, putting him up against a heel AJ Styles. Again, most people love AJ, but solidifying him as this heel character, as you mentioned earlier. All right.
Yep.
We've talked about it. Let's pick it. Does Cody Rhodes' championship reign only last 1 month? Does Cody win this one? What are we looking at here?
Worst story of all time if he loses. Just to be completely honest with you. I've never been more confident in a lock in my life that Cody Rhodes is winning. I'm not even saying winning. Cody is walking out WWE champion still.
Yes.
He may lose. He may get disqualified, count out, whatever the case is. He's walking out still WWE champion. So that's the biggest lock of the show. Probably the biggest lock of the year so far is that.
You feel more confident in that lock than you did Cody winning at WrestleMania?
Oh, I had full confidence in that one. I was not scared one bit ever.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Cody Rhodes walks away with the championship in this one. No matter what the outcome is, or no matter what Mike Rome or Samantha Urban says at the end of the night, Cody Rhodes is going to be still champion by the end of this. But let's talk about the other world championship match. That is the first title. We just mentioned the first title defense of Cody Rhodes. Now it's the first title defense of Damian Priest of the Judgment Day after cashing in his Money in the Bank contract at WrestleMania, beating Drew McIntyre. Now he defends against his first challenger, arguably the biggest babyface. I don't know if there is an argument anymore. On Monday Night Raw, Jey Uso getting his first crack at the World Heavyweight Championship. Man, lots of different directions this could go. What do you like about this one?
The fact that this could honestly go either way. Like, I know Damian Priest just won, but I think there might be a scenario where Jey Uso could walk out winner. I think there's a chance he could walk out as World Heavyweight Champion. I've personally feel like with King of the Ring and Gunther being the first one to name himself in that tournament, I think whoever wins this one is who is going to lose to Gunther in that title. And I've been saying that for a minute. And I think Jay Gunther would be very interesting if we flip the roles from the IC match a couple months ago. I also think it would be really interesting as Jay is just world champion and Roman not. I think that would be a very interesting dynamic as well. But also, I don't necessarily want to see Damian Priest lose right away either.
Right.
He's kind of been stuck in the same paradox that Cody's stuck in of just kind of trying to get to the draft and get this done and then kind of flesh out his title run from there. So I just feel like we're kind of in that weird post-WrestleMania lull that always happens of, not really knowing what's coming up next and kind of having to do the same thing every week rather than, building to something in the future because we've got the draft in between and Backlash and everything else. So
sure,
maybe they could spread it out a little bit more. Maybe they could fix it a little bit better. But I think we're kind of stuck in that path right now.
I think it's just really interesting because, a lot of times you and I consider ourselves smart fans, let's be honest. And a lot of times we can predict what's going to happen. Well, right now we're sitting here saying, I don't know what's actually going to come next. I don't know what direction they could go in a lot of different directions. I'm like you, man. I could easily see Jey Uso winning this match and winning the World Heavyweight Championship. I could also see Jacob Fatu debuting during this match and costing Jey Uso the World Heavyweight Championship, thus furthering Jey and the Bloodline story and bringing Jey and Jimmy closer together. We talked about that last week. Could also see Judgment Day coming out, and they could help Priest, or Finn could get jealous and turn on Priest. There's lots of different directions they could go. One thing that I will agree with you, though, is Gunther, it's shaping up to be Gunther's championship no matter how we get there. I think I would rather have Damian Priest be the one to drop the title to Gunther. I don't know what route they're going to go with Gunther as far as babyface heel, especially with Kaiser turning on Vinci last week. Will they add another member? Don't know. I can't see them being a group and being baby faces. I think Gunther needs to be that on his own if that happens. But at the same time, man, if Jey Uso wins this title, man, I certainly don't want to see him drop it to Gunther right away, a month later. Because Jey Uso, like I said, the hottest babyface on Monday Night Raw, you want that to cook for a while. And if he's the champ, you want him running with that for a bit. You talk about headlining TVs and house shows, and the list goes on. So, lots of directions they could go. What are your thoughts on Jacob Fatu? I know that we're going to talk about him here in just a minute with the Bloodline and Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. Which one is more likely you think we see him?
I don't know. It's hard to kind of pinpoint what he is going, when he's going to show up. I think it's inevitable at this point that he's just going to show up at some point.
Yes.
I honestly think at Backlash, costing Jey would be very interesting. Or coming out in the tag match, which will probably happen before the World Championship match, and then all three of them going after Jey.
Oh, that could be cool.
Kind of beating him down a little bit more. And I think it's been confirmed that Jimmy is injured right now, and I don't know exactly how long he's supposed to be out for.
Correct.
So that kind of throws a wrench a little bit into things. But I honestly, I think
also could be kayfabe.
Could be. It could be. And the injury could be not as severe as stated. But I think it's very interesting. Jay's on Raw, the entire Bloodline's on SmackDown. So that's kind of separating them enough until we kind of need them to get back together. But I really think that's a way they could go, is have him debut during the tag match and then go after Jay in the World Championship match later in the night to set up something down the line. Maybe it's a good way to get Jay off TV, because we know he's probably not going to Saudi Arabia because of. Well, no, they were allowed to go. They were allowed to go last time.
Yeah, they were there for.
That's where the tag match was, or that's where the Jimmy turned and then got mad at Jay.
Yes,
for turn. It was.
That's right.
Yeah, that's where it kind of fell apart a little bit. But I don't think. I think there's a chance Jay could walk out as champion. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either. I'm with you right there. As much as we would probably like to see it, Jey Uso probably not getting his crack at the world title at this point. But you know what? That's okay. in due time. We mentioned it. Let's talk about the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga taking on Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. Tag match that was announced last week by Teddy Long Playa. Always got to announce the tag matches. I'm interested that they went back to Kevin Owens and Randy Orton as a team here. Maybe they just didn't have somebody else. I preached long before WrestleMania that they needed to put Kevin and Sammy back together, and it would have brought this thing full circle. Would have built to that War Games match we're talking about, but I guess they didn't listen to my booking. What are your thoughts here on putting these two guys back together?
I think storyline wise, it makes sense because, outside of Cody, probably those like Randy and KO are the two guys that have dealt with the Bloodline the most over the last 2-3 years, however long it's been.
Right.
Kevin Owens has fought Roman Reigns at the Rumble the last 3 years. So like they've been going at it for a while. Randy Orton is another guy that like obviously the Bloodline were the ones that injured him and sent him away for as long as they did and everything else. So I think it's smart to put them together. At the end of the day, you can never really trust either one of those guys. So yes. I would not be shocked if a turn to happen some point in there. We head to a Randy Orton, Kevin Owens feud, which I don't think we've ever really seen, which would be really interesting to see those two guys kind of feuding.
Yeah, nothing consistent comes to mind, I don't think.
Yeah. So I think that would be really interesting if Kevin turned heel, if Randy turned heel, whatever the case is. I think this is a must win for Solo and Tama. Like this is a must win for them. If they're going to be credible threats to the entire WWE roster, right, they need to not only win this. I think they need to like convincingly win this in a lot of ways. Not necessarily squashing them, but the end result needs to be very similar to Solo Cena. And then actually do something off the back of that, not just let it sit for 6 months and then do nothing with it until WrestleMania. So I think this is a really, really big moment for them to swim without Roman Reigns, without the Bloodline as a whole, without The Rock, and just do their own thing, go out there and make a name for themselves, so that when everything kind of comes into place, it feels as big as possible and not kind of lowered to their level, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh no, 100%, man. Totally agree with you. In order for this chaos to continue, in order for Bloodline 2.0 to continue as dominant as they are, especially if they're adding Jacob Fatu, man, they got to win this one. They got to win this one convincingly. It's two established future Hall of Famers that they are going to defeat. So yes, they absolutely need to. And man, you got to give kudos to Paul Heyman and the role that he is playing in this 2.0 storyline, and the way that he's trying to hold the original Bloodline together so much, but Solo is causing so much chaos over here that he's scared to death. He's trying to bring Solo back in, but man, it's just Paul Heyman is just playing his role masterfully throughout this whole storyline. Kudos to him, man. I love it so much. He's the thread that makes this thing stay together. And then when Roman comes back, oh man, whose side is Paul Heyman on? Gosh, I can't wait, man. It's going to be so good.
Yeah, it's wild to think that Paul Heyman's kind of been the glue of the entire Bloodline storyline.
Yeah.
Like, if it wasn't for him and Roman getting together, I don't know if we would really be at where we're at with the Bloodline and with everything else. So I think that's really, really important to kind of point out, and to also like to give him his props of being the guy that's kind of held everything together for the Bloodline. So it's going to be very interesting when Roman gets back, whenever Rock gets involved again, whenever all of this really just falls apart in front of everybody. It's going to be really interesting to see where everybody's allegiances are, who's going to align themselves with Roman, who's going to align themselves possibly with Rock, and who's just going to completely walk away and be done with it all. Like, I think that's an option for a lot of people as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting when that comes around.
Yeah, it really will, man. And then maybe we get an involvement from Rikishi. Maybe we finally see Afa and Sika. Maybe, maybe we get all that going on. But man, you thought the Bloodline storyline had one ending, It's totally just changing. It's totally evolving. This thing could go on for a long time. And man, it just keeps getting more interesting the way that they're going about this. So, once again, you are picking the Bloodline to win this tag match.
Absolutely. 100%.
All right, me too. No doubt about it. All right, let's move on to another tag match. This one is for the Women's Tag Team Championship. The Kabuki Warriors, who, let's be honest, I forgot was the tag team champions. Asuka and Kairi Sane defending against the powerhouse duo Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Man, I'm not going to knock AEW when I say this, but WWE has done such a masterful job of booking Jade Cargill since she got here. This is no different, man. Like, this is incredible booking right here to make her look as big of a deal as she is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think putting her with Bianca and having them go after the tag titles is very, very important to establish her in front of the main audience. But also, like you said, we both said we had no idea who the women's tag champions are. Like those tag titles have been cursed for, honestly, since they came into existence. Yes. They have been cursed from the beginning.
Yep.
So I'm very curious to see what happens. I think there's a scenario where Jade and Bianca win, and it's probably the likely scenario.
Yes.
I think there's a scenario where Jade turns on Bianca in this match, or Bianca turns on Jade, or whatever, and we start to head towards a SummerSlam match between those two. I think that's going to be Bianca. I think that's going to be Jade's first really, really big feud in WWE is going to be Bianca. Like I think at this point that's kind of been thoroughly established. I'm just wondering when that's going to happen, when they're going to pull the trigger on it. I would be curious to see how they handle Jade as a tag team champion and Bianca as a tag team champion, and like how long are they actually going to hold that? Because yes, Jade is awesome in this tag team. At some point, though, pretty soon she's going to break free and be her own person.
Absolutely,
and so, do we want her to eat a loss this soon? Do we want to? I mean, how are we going to handle that? I think it's going to be very, very important. But I'm very, very excited for this one to see how she stacks up, and also like four fantastic wrestlers are going to be in this match as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens.
Well, we saw on Monday Night Raw tonight, as a result of the draft, that Damage Control is moving to Monday Night Raw. And Jade Cargill, along with Bianca Belair, drafted to SmackDown. So it's do or die at this point. Either the tag team titles are going to Monday Night Raw, or they're going to go SmackDown. If I had to lean towards a prediction, I would say that Jade and Bianca win this one, just so they can get the titles. Like you said, I don't think it's a good idea for Jade to eat a pin this soon. Bianca could eat it and it would be fine. But I think your match between Jade and Bianca, I think that stretches all the way to WrestleMania. I think it's a year-long story of them teaming together at WrestleMania 40, and then the match ends up happening at WrestleMania 41. So I could see them. We saw also drafted to SmackDown tonight Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. So I could easily see Bianca and Jade winning, and their first feud out of the gate being with the former champions. Maybe it's a one match, maybe it's two match, whatever. So I can easily see that. I think they win the titles. I think this could be the route of trying to reestablish those titles, break the curse. Let's try to bring some credibility back to them, putting them on two huge superstars in Jade and Bianca. I think that's the way that we go with this one. I think they have to win here.
Yeah, and if they win, they need to not only hold those titles for a while, but like defend them pretty often.
Yep.
Because we've had big names win the tag titles before. I mean, Becky and Lita were tag champs at one point, but it still has not felt important. Like them being tag champions felt like a small step in that entire story, and not like the important part to get to.
Right.
So I think Jade and Bianca need to win those titles. If they win those titles, they need to hold on to them for a while and, be dominant. I mean, be absolutely dominant.
Agreed.
Beat everybody. And then whoever takes the titles off of them heads into their match at SummerSlam. I honestly think, or not SummerSlam, WrestleMania. I think, honestly, we were probably heading to Jade Bianca at SummerSlam. I think the Rhea injury probably has stretched this out a lot, because I really think WrestleMania 41, we were heading to Rhea Bianca for the title.
Yeah.
But I think with Rhea's injury, probably not now. Probably saving that for 42, or maybe possibly SummerSlam next year. So why not just take your time and establish this? I also would think it'd be very interesting if when we get to that point, if Bianca turned heel on Jade instead of Jade turning heel on Bianca, because we haven't really had heel Bianca on the main roster.
Nope.
So that would be very interesting to see that kind of play out.
Well, and I think, too, it would have been perfect if, they dabbled with the Street Profits being heels for like 2 weeks, even changed their music, and then they went away from that because I don't know why. But we got their original music back and then whatever. But I think you could have, at the same time of having them heels, you could have aligned them with Bianca instead of B-Fab, and that it could have naturally just worked that way. But I don't know. Is what it is, I guess. Bianca being a heel could be very interesting. I don't exactly know how it'll look. But again, that is the beauty of Triple H being the booker and not me, because he knows more than I do. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. What else will be interesting is the final match that has been announced on the Backlash card, and that is for the Women's Championship. Bayley defending in a triple threat match against Naomi and Tiffany Stratton. And man, lots of different directions this thing could go. I think the most logical one is Bayley retains, Naomi eats the pin, Tiffany is there just to look good, be in a championship match, but not win, but also not lose. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that sums this up perfectly. Is Bayley's going to get a big win. She's going to look good in her retaining the title. I think not the most important, I think it's very, very important to establish Bayley's championship reign here. But I also think it's very important to not make Naomi and Tiffany both look bad in defeat. I think all three ladies need to come out looking as strong as possible, because I think Tiffany Stratton is like the future of the women's division. I think she is absolutely got big things planned for her in the future. But also, like, Naomi is nothing to look down upon.
Absolutely
she's
not.
Probably going to be a world champion at some point down the line again. I think she's going to possibly get involved with the Bloodline storyline, even though I'm totally fine if she doesn't. I don't think she necessarily needs to. But I think it'd be very, very interesting to see what kind of comes out of this and where Bayley goes next, especially after the draft and people kind of switching spots and kind of also staying the same. The rosters really haven't changed that much.
Oh, we're going to get to that in a minute. We're getting to that in a minute.
So I'm very curious to see what's next for Bayley.
Yep.
Because I'm really hoping they're not going straight into a singles feud with Tiffany Stratton, because I don't necessarily want her to get into a title feud and then lose immediately. I think we need to build her up even more so to that point.
Well,
what I'm going to do it right away.
Speaking of the draft and some things either moving or not moving, one of the things that did move, Nia Jax moved over to SmackDown, and we saw her get involved in the match this past Friday. We also saw Monday Night Raw tonight, Naomi and Tiffany Stratton get involved in Nia's match. So what's Nia's involvement in this match coming up at Backlash? I'm not saying that we turned it into a fatal four-way, but there's no DQs in a triple threat match, so could easily see Nia Jax get involved in this one. I'm not saying cost Bayley, but insert herself into the title picture in that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of other people like Rhea and Becky and Charlotte, Nia is always going to be in that title contention.
Yes.
And if you need a quick feud, just throw Nia in there and kind of let her go at it.
Yep.
So I think that's probably part of it, and probably just to establish her as the top threat. I don't think she'll necessarily get involved during the match. I think post-match she could come out and beat down on Bayley, and then probably head into a Tiffany Naomi feud solo, Bayley Nia feud heading into probably a Saudi show. They'll probably wrestle at the Saudi show. So I think that would be very interesting to see that kind of play out.
I think you could get a tag match out of there. I don't know if it's a long-term friendship or partnership between Tiffany and Nia, but you could at least get a Tiffany and Nia versus Bailey Naomi one-off or something.
Yeah.
Again, don't know if that's long-term or not, but I think we're both in agreement there. I think that's Bailey coming out on top post-match, and afterwards, still a little bit to question, but Bailey coming out on top, retaining her championship. 5-match card, man. We're recording this during Monday Night Raw, so if something does go down between now and Backlash and we didn't cover it, we're sorry. We couldn't do it. But we will have everything for you on our YouTube channel. We'll recap everything coming up next week as well. We'll be watching the show, probably be live tweeting the show, might even do a live show after the show. Just keep it locked in right here to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you're subscribed. Most of you that are watching our product have not subscribed on the YouTube channel. Please make sure you do that. Doesn't cost you a thing. Helps us a ton. Just hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up button on the video. That helps us a lot as well. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see our social media handles are all over the screen. The show's right there at the bottom. And then if you look on mine and Andy's screen, our social media handle is there. For those of you listening, it's at SQ_radio. I am at Chris Belcher 24. Andy is at Andy_SQR. Yeah. So make sure you give us a follow. Make sure you're hanging in there with us. We would appreciate it very much. All right, Andy, you know what it is time for? That is right. It's time for a little head-to-head trivia, Backlash style. Now, full disclosure for everybody that is listening. Andy and I were talking about this, and I said, Andy, come up with a couple Backlash questions. I'm going to come up with a couple Backlash questions, and we're going to see what comes of this. Ladies and gentlemen, full disclosure, we didn't find a whole lot, but we found a little bit, and we're going to see what happens here. So, Andy and I are going to go back and forth. He's going to ask the question. I'm going to ask the question. Andy, I don't know how this is going to go, but it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, this one's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Let's see what happens. Let's play a little music here. Here we go. Andy, throw us out a first question. Here we go.
All right, so I kind of throw you a softball for the first one.
All right.
But in the very first Backlash, 1999, Mankind defeated Big Show in what kind of match?
I remember. It was a boiler room brawl.
There you go. That's what.
Yes. All right. Sweet. All right. I will throw you one. Maybe not necessarily a softball, but kind of. It came from that same Backlash. The very first one, 1999. During that year, also began the on-screen character of Stephanie McMahon. And at the event, the very end, she was driven away in a limousine as the kidnapping angles continued. Who was driving this limousine, who famously closed the pay-per-view with the line, "Where to, Stephanie?"
He also said the line, "Buckle up, Teddy." Undertaker.
That is correct. And you think those two things are probably related.
That's one of my favorite Undertaker quotes is, "Buckle up, Teddy."
Oh, good. All right. We both got one right. Let's do this.
We did. I'll throw you another softball one because we had to bring this one up. But in 2017, who walked out as the WWE champion?
Also before we started recording, we tried to figure out if we were going to have the same questions. And this one is very, very, very similar. So I will tell you that the answer to your question is one Jinder Mahal. And I will toss back to you and say, who did Jinder Mahal defeat to win said WWE championship?
He defeated the Viper, Randy Orton, with the help of Bray Wyatt.
Oh, 2017, what a time we were living in.
I vividly remember that show and hearing the rumors of like Ginger probably will win the WWE Championship. I'm like, no, like even like that's dumb. They're not going to do that. Well,
they listened to Sam Roberts. That's what happened. And Sam Roberts called it a long time ago.
Mistake.
Ridiculous. All right. Hit us with another one, man. We're both 2 for 2 here.
All right, we'll stay modern era. But in 2020, during the pandemic and during the no crowds era, Braun Strowman defended his Universal Championship in a 2-on-1 handicap match. Who are the two men that he beat?
Was that Miz and Morrison?
It was Miz and Morrison.
Ah, yes. All right. I had a little bit of fear that I was going to miss that one there for a second. All right. I'll throw you a modern one as well. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Backlash was originally designed to be the first pay-per-view after WrestleMania as a way to continue storylines and momentum of WrestleMania. It moved around a little bit through its years, but most of the time it's been either the April or the May pay-per-view. However, the event was actually renamed WrestleMania Backlash in 2 years?
That would be 22.
That is correct. And what other one?
21. I think it was
that is correct. Too. Yes, 21 and 22. Man, both of us 3 for 3. Look at that.
Look at that. All right, in 2001. Backlash was the host of the only submission Iron Man match in WWE history. Who are the two competitors?
Two of the greatest submission wrestlers of all time. That would be the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle and the crippler Chris Benoit.
Yep.
All right. All right. I'll stay in that era, but we'll go forward one more year. Backlash 2002 was the final event held under the WWF name. And it was also the final wrestling event held at Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri. That is the location in which Owen Hart tragically passed away. This night in 2002 also marked the final world title win for which of these WWE legends? Was it The Undertaker? Was it Ric Flair? Was it Stone Cold Steve Austin? Or was it Hulk Hogan?
That would be Mr. Handlebar Mustache himself, Hulk Hogan.
That is correct. He defeated Triple H just because Hulkamania was running wild, brother. And they had to do it.
Apparently, Triple H was supposed to have like a long title run or something, and it got cut real short because of Hogan.
Yep. And then a couple months later, they handed him the big gold belt, and then that world title reign continued.
Reign of Terror.
The Reign of Terror. That's what it was. All right. 4 for 4 each of us. Let's see if we can both go perfect. This has never happened.
This has never happened. All right. In 2016 was the first time that Backlash came back after a 7-year absence, and this was the first pay-per-view with dual brand paper, so it was split brand.
Yes.
So this was a SmackDown exclusive.
That is correct.
Pay-per-view. During this show, they crowned the very first ever SmackDown Tag Team Champions.
Oh, that's right.
Who was the team?
Heath Slater and Rhino.
Yep.
Yeah, let's go.
Do you know who was the inaugural SmackDown Women's Champion?
Oh, Alexa Bliss. No, Becky Lynch. They gave it to Becky Lynch, and then Becky Lynch, and then she lost it to Alexa Bliss. That's what happened.
Yep.
All right. On that very same show, AJ Styles won his first WWE Championship. Who did he beat?
Dean Ambrose or John Moxley, whatever you want to call him. But
man, listen. Holy cow. You know what? That deserves a big. We are going 5 for 5 in trivia. That is so much fun. We enjoy playing head-to-head trivia on this show. So much in our archives, trivia stuff. We did a whole lot of WrestleMania trivia, Royal Rumble trivia. Go back and check out our archives wherever you find your podcast. Every single platform, we are right there. If you're not subscribed, make sure that you do that. And it's also on our YouTube channel. There is a head-to-head wrestling trivia playlist on our YouTube channel. Make sure that you check it out. It is so much fun. Andy and I do a great job of trying to stump each other. We've had Andy's wife on the show. We've had Tyler Peters on the show, Jared Justice. Everybody we've tried to throw out trivia. It's so much fun. Andy is one of the big parts of our rebrand of Squared Circle Radio. One thing that we made sure to add is trivia, because you and I are super competitive and we love trivia. So it's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to throw in. So we hope that you guys are digging what we're doing. And if you're not, just get used to it. It's a lot of fun. Promise. All right. As we get ready to wrap up, one more segment that we want to hit you with, and that is our 3-count segment. And what is a 3-count segment, you ask? Well, that is Andy and I's way of catching you up on the news, telling you what we think is good, what we think is bad, and what we're still holding out hope for. We're going to wait and see how things play out. Andy, I'll let you go first, man. What is good in the wrestling business this week?
So what is good in the wrestling business this week is there's no way we can have this show and not talk about this. But the ending to AEW Dynamite this past Wednesday night was one of the most entertaining segments that the AEW has ever put on. And that is not only Jungle Boy Jack Perry coming back and hugging Tony Khan in the ring, but then punching him with the mic in the gut. And then it could have ended there and it'd have been fine. And it'd have been pretty entertaining. But then the Bucks and Okada come out and they sell like they're going to do the EVP trigger. And then they stop and they help Tony up. And then they hit him with the TK driver in the middle of the ring. And I cannot tell you the smile I had on my face, the joy I had in my heart watching Tony Khan take a bump. And finally realizing, like, listen, I know you didn't want to be a character on your own show for a while, but right now it's going to work. If you become a character on your own show, it's going to work with everything that's happened. So please do so. And they did it perfectly. I mean, I think they did it absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, I will say this. For all of you who are listening and watching this show who follow us regularly know that I dabble in AEW some. It's not my favorite thing to watch. I'll read what happened, and I'll catch all the highlights on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. But it's not something that I dive into regularly. Having said that, I did see this. I thought it was very interesting. I'm like you. I'm glad they saved that moment for this. I'm talking about TK being an on-screen character. He's come out a couple of times and made some announcements. He's notorious for making announcements, actually. But he's come out. We've seen him on screen. So it's not like this is the very first time. This is the first time he's gotten physical. Right. And I guess what was annoying to me, and kudos to the guy for carrying it out, but seeing him the next night and the next couple of days on the NFL draft and wearing a neck brace, and man,
that was the cherry on top.
Oh
that was keeping kayfabe alive is perfect. Because listen, on NFL Network, what did they talk about?
I know,
Tony Khan taking the pile driver. So it was smart to do it.
What I was
their business out there.
Exactly what I was going to say. Rich Eisen's on there. He's like, "Oh, get well, TK, get well, whatever." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, come on, guys!"
Perfect.
Oh, good grief!
I loved it.
All right, well, that was fine. Let me tell you what I think is good in the wrestling business this week, and that is WWE putting pen to paper and re-signing two of their biggest stars, keeping them in-house. Drew McIntyre and Finn Balor re-signing with the WWE. I'm not going to say that I thought they would go elsewhere. I thought Finn had a much better shot to go elsewhere than McIntyre did, but it's so important to have these two guys. And especially with The Rock being the one to tweet out the Drew McIntyre re-sign, having The Rock stamp of approval on Drew McIntyre, dude, it is huge to keep those guys at home.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, those are two guys that you can't let slip through the cracks and go somewhere else. I think, obviously, out of the two, Drew would have been the bigger name to go somewhere else. And if he showed up in TNA, that's one thing. If he showed up in AEW, like, he would kill it no matter where he went outside of WWE, because he's killing it in WWE right now as well. So I think no matter where he went, he would be fine. And Finn, I think Finn Balor is one of those guys that you have to keep around because he's so reliable and can easily get connected with the crowd pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm very, very glad they got it. And that, like you said, Drew not only getting like the stamp of approval from The Rock, but like The Rock tweeting out his signing and giving him the sword and the paper and all of that stuff is showing how much faith they have in Drew McIntyre for the company. Like it's massive.
Yeah, and Tyler Peters and I talked on a previous iteration of this show a long time ago whenever this was starting to come up that Drew was unhappy. I think it was around WrestleMania last year, I think so. And like, Drew is just a WWE guy. Like, I know that's where he started his career, and I know he had a lot of success outside WWE, but Drew is just a company guy, man. And to see him somewhere else would have been weird. I think the opposite of you. I think Finn would have had more success outside the company than Drew. I think Finn could fit in very well in AEW. I think Finn could fit in super well with the current Elite storyline that's going on that we just talked about. I think obviously he slides right back in with the Bullet Club in Japan, and that works out and whatever. So I think Finn in today's wrestling landscape would have had better success outside. Again, not saying Drew couldn't have done it, because clearly he could have. But I think that just shows all the more importance of keeping these guys at home in WWE. All right, Andy, what was bad this week in the world of wrestling?
So there are two things, but I think one you're probably going to bring up at some point. So I'll let you bring up the draft.
Okay.
But the bad I'm going with is, and we talked about it last episode with Chris Jericho, but this learning tree gimmick is just not working, I don't think. And I know he just started it kind of. I think this was like the first week he started it, but he's been planting the seeds for it for a while. But obviously, like, while planting the seeds, the crowd was letting him know this isn't it. Like, this is not what we want to really see. Kind of intriguing, Big Bill coming out and wanting to be a part of the group with him, like start something, because if Chris Jericho's in a group, he has to have a big boy with him.
Gotta have him.
And so he's got to have the muscle, and so he's looking at Big Bill. But I don't know, it's not really connecting, and I feel like Jericho's going back to his comfort zone of the pinnacle, not the pinnacle. That's what
Inner Circle
was. Inner Circle, thank you. Yep. Inner Circle and the Jericho Appreciation Society and whatever he's going to call this group. I feel like he's going back into his comfort zone, which is not good for anything. So I honestly, like we said last week, I love Jericho as the wrestler. I think as the person, he's take him or leave him, however you want to do it.
Yep.
But in ring, I think he's very important. I think he's a great guy to have around. I think it's time for him to move on and do something different with his character. Take some time off. Go back to AEW if you want, but take some time off and figure out what you need to do to freshen things up again.
Like, what more can he do with a group? Like, we've seen three of them. We've seen a heel iteration and a babyface iteration. I think of both of the previous ones that he's done. So, like, what else can he do, man? I get the learning tree is probably this, let's bring up the younger guys. I'm going to steal Edge's Judgment Day idea and bring up the younger guys who aren't getting enough spotlight, and I'm going to put my sprinkle of Jericho on them, and they're going to be great. Like, what is he going to do?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's got the right intentions of what he's trying to do with the group, but it's just it's not working in this era of AEW. I think honestly, AEW is kind of past the point where they need him. I think they need Edge more than they need Chris Jericho right now.
Yep.
And I think that's very, very important for him to kind of realize and take note of.
We shall see. Jericho is a very stubborn individual, if people haven't figured that out yet. So I don't know if he's going to take our advice or not. My bad. You said it. My bad in the world of wrestling this week is the draft. And I'm not going to try to take away ideas. I'm going to point all of our listeners to the Busted Open podcast. I listened to this today, Andy. I don't know if you listened to it or not, but it was an episode that dropped yesterday. And it was Matt Camp. Yes, the Matt Camp, formerly of The Bump, who is now part of Busted Open. Did not realize his contract ran out with WWE, whatever, but he's full-time on Busted Open now, which is where he was before The Bump, I think. Matt Camp and Justin LaBar on this episode of Busted Open talking about ways to fix the draft. So much good content in that podcast. Go back. I mean, they talked about how WWE has just dropped the ball because all of these new production things that they're doing, none of it is implemented into the draft. They control the narrative with the draft, and they're trying to use the draft to fit their storylines rather than the other way around. They could have done the draft special all in one night and pre-produce it and make it like the NFL draft and all of those kind of things, yet they haven't done it. We've barely seen anybody move. Now, we've seen some more movement tonight on Monday Night Raw. We just saw DIY is now drafted to SmackDown. The Final Testament is on Monday Night Raw. We saw Braun Strowman return tonight. Ilya Dragunov is officially on Monday Night Raw. So there's been a little more movement tonight than there was on Friday night. But Andy, there's nothing that's intriguing me about the draft. It's just not, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I think you could make this a special on Peacock or on Netflix next year when you go to that or whatever the case is. I think you can do that. Go to one of those pay-per-view type places or streaming places and do the entire draft in one night, like a live draft. Have Michael Cole, have Wade Barrett, have
Big
Corey
E.
Graves, have Pat McAfee, have Big E on a panel talking about each pick, and have Triple H come out and announce each pick like the NFL draft, like the NBA draft, like all these other drafts, because it's a formula that works really well. And, I think it's very, very important to do that, to make it count, because if you want the brand split to matter, that if the draft doesn't matter, the brands don't matter.
Right.
And so I think that's a very, very important way. But like you said, tonight, there's been some more movement. I mean, as we're talking right now, Blair Davenport just got called up from NXT to SmackDown, which I think is a fantastic choice. But I honestly, Friday night, nothing happened. It was a pointless show for the draft. Absolutely pointless. So I also don't like that the champions were safe. I think champions should be drafted. And Roman Reigns pulling himself out of the draft automatically made the draft be like, oh, this doesn't matter. Roman Reigns was the biggest name in the draft pool that could get drafted. And nothing happened. So it was a waste of drafting, in my opinion.
And what's annoying, like I said, is WWE controls this. It's all scripted. It's all stories. They can do it on their own. So I think in this era of long-term storytelling with Triple H, I think they just need to figure out where the draft fits in all of it and just utilize it in that way, because they can do it right. I fully believe it. I don't know. It just needs better planned. I don't know what it is. All right, Andy, what are we going to wait and see about? What are you maybe you like it, you're on the fence about it. What are we going to wait and see about?
So I'm kind of on the fence, and I was kind of talking about it, but nothing nothing's really developed because we haven't kind of time, but I'm just kind of letting it play out. Is Chad Gable's heel turn? Like I'm enjoying it. I think he's doing a great job. I think last week his promo where he literally ran down the entire Alpha Academy was very, very good.
Yep.
Very interesting. Tonight he ate a haluva kick from Sami Zayn and then cost him or attacked him during his match. So like we're starting to play things out a little bit more. I just hope this ends with a couple things. Him holding the Intercontinental Championship at some point and establishing him as this generation's Kurt Angle, because he is this generation's Kurt Angle if you just let him be him. Like right. I think that's the thing that like we're missing the most is people talk all the time comparisons about LA Knight to Austin and The Rock and some other guys. I've never seen anybody look so similar to someone before and not be allowed to do anything that person did, like Chad Gable and Kurt Angle. All the way back to the illegitimate child storyline with Jason Jordan. Instead of like could you imagine the push and the rub that Chad Gable would have got back then? Which fun fact that happened in Raw or that happened in Nashville.
We're there.
Because we all thought Dixie Carter was coming out and she didn't. But I've never seen somebody not be given the chance to get their potential. I honestly think he is in WWE history the most underrated wrestler in the entire company's history because he's not been given enough time to do anything. And once he does get a little momentum, they kind of stop it.
That is a fun topic that we need to flesh out on another date. The most underrated wrestler in WWE history. Whew. Oh man, that is big. Yeah, I'm holding out hope on that one too. I think it could be really, really good. I want to wait and see what happens. I know they had some really good momentum as baby faces, talking about the Alpha Academy. We'll have to see what happens with Otis and Maxine and Akira Tozawa. But my wait and see is this potential budding relationship between Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio. Bro,
it's getting spicy.
Bro, if they do this right, the return of Rhea Ripley just writes itself, man. Like it is just, it will be if they do it right. That's why I'm waiting to see, because like it could really burn out really, really fast. It could crash and burn so fast. Yeah. But dude, if they just baby steps and they do this just right, and maybe Dom helps her win the women's championship, and then they're standing there together, and then Rhea comes back. Oh man, let's go. Yeah. Like I love this so much. And then when when Rhea beats Liv can just leave Dom because she doesn't need him anymore because she doesn't have the title, or maybe she uses him to try to get Rhea. I don't know, but like lots of ways they could go with it. But man, I'm excited. I think it's super cool. Having those two face to face last week and not say a word. Yes, everybody felt it. It was great.
And then this week, like in Jey Uso's promo, you see Liv leave a room, and then 2 seconds later, you see Dom leave the room right behind her. So, yeah, I'm very, very excited to see what happens. Like you said, it could go really, really awesome, or just be absolutely nothing at the same time. But I think it's very interesting to see the dynamic switch when Mommy gets back and what happens between Rhea and Liv, and Rhea and Dom, and Liv and Dom, and Judgment Day, and all the other things that are kind of circulating this one little storyline that's happening right now. I also dig that.
We talked about ways to get everything away from Rhea so she could be the ultimate babyface. This is an easy way to get Dom away from her. We're seeing cracks in the Judgment Day. You don't even have to let her just associate with them or interact with them or anything. Just it all writes itself, man. It is so natural once she comes back. All right, man. Good episode. Good stuff. Appreciate you guys hanging with us. If you're digging what we're doing, again, follow us on social media at SQCircle_radio. You can follow Andy and I both individually as well. Our social media handles are on the screen on the video version of this show. You're not watching the video, what are you doing? YouTube channel. Make sure that you're subscribed. Like the video. We would appreciate it. If you are listening to us on podcast, just make sure that you are subscribed wherever you find a podcast. We would appreciate it. Also, one thing I didn't mention earlier, Andy, ProWrestlingTees.com/Squared Circle Radio. Buy yourself a t-shirt. That is the best way to support the show. We would appreciate that very much. And you can't forget our friends over at Sports Wire Radio, playing our shows all the time. Tom and the crew do a fantastic job keeping you up to date on all your wrestling news, all your sports news. That is Sports Wire, sports with a Z. SportsWireRadio.org is where you can listen live. Big things happening in the world of our podcast. Andy, you and I have been texting a whole lot about this back and forth the last couple of days. We got some potential big guests coming on our show. I'm not ready to reveal any names yet, but again, this is your first time listening. You don't want it to be your last. Stay tuned. It is going to be a whole lot of fun. Andy, a loaded week this week too, man. We got 2 episodes of our fantasy booking show, the MCWF, coming out. We got week 13 coming out on Thursday. Pay-per-view number 3 coming out on Saturday. And then, of course, Backlash is Saturday. What a week it is, man.
Yeah, what a week it is. And a lot of amazing content coming out this week. So definitely want to stick around and check it out. Go listen to our other stuff. Go listen to our, 2.5 other seasons of the MCWF that you can go back and listen to. And yeah, it's a busy time right now. There's a lot coming out, but we love doing it and we love making content and talking about wrestling and fantasy booking wrestling and everything else. So definitely jump along and join the ride.
Absolutely. And the MCWF, what is that if you're asking? Well, it's our fantasy booking show. It is completely opposite of what we're doing today. But it is available on the same feed. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and check it out. Our buddy Tyler Peters hosts that show with us. It's a whole lot of fun. We fantasy book current rosters. And we just have a whole lot of fun doing that. So check it out if you haven't already. Make sure that you're joining in on the fun. We'd appreciate it. All right, Andy, I think that's going to do it. Anything else to add before we sign off?
I don't think so. Just looking forward to Backlash on Saturday and, talking more wrestling next week.
If you're not subscribed already, make sure that you do that. Make sure you're tuned in each and every Tuesday and Thursday. We're dropping brand new content for you. For Mr. Andy York, my name's Chris Belcher. This has been Squared Circle Radio. We will catch you guys down the road.